So Michael Winterson, Managing Director of Equinix Services for Europe or for the world or for the planet, I guess.
Yeah, intergalactic. No,
Intergalactic.
I'm part of the European management team.
Okay, and thank you so much again for joining us. It's a lovely link with where Rich finished.
Yeah.
Because the word that comes to mind is collaboration, cooperation.
Yeah.
And it's an Irishman in your position, but in this case, it was an American guy who got the Europeans finally, all 25 corporations and 17 trade associations, to sign something called the Carbon Neutral Data Center Pact.
Yeah.
What is it? Why now? And why does it matter?
Well, actually, we're up to, I think now it's over 20 trade associations and over 35 data center operators, and anywhere from individual operators in countries like LCL in Brussels, up to digital, ourselves, CyrusOne, Iron Mountain, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, OVH, the largest European cloud. So yeah, quite a good group of people, probably representing about 60% of the commercial data center footprint.
And of course, we've quite a few of them on here. We've Matt from Cyrus on. We've got Morris from Digital or from Equinix. There's a slip for you. And we've obviously got Seamus and the boys from Interaction Digital also. So
all great, and I got to tell you, this actually started out in a session back in March at a Tech UK session. So with the lovely Emma Fryer, we were in a discussion around why are there not enough competitive PPAs available for data center operators in Europe. The market is not. It's still a bit clunky. It's still quite expensive. It's getting a lot better very quickly. And we had a Schneider presentation, and we talked about, Emma asked me if I could just talk a bit about the recently announced article, not the European Green Deal, but Europe Fit for the Digital Age, which specifically called out the need for the entire ICT sector, that includes telecom, to be carbon neutral and climate neutral by 2030. And so they're asking us to give us debrief. And the spark was there was various cloud and data center providers there. So what if we got together and whiteboarded today, what would a data center be built and run like if it had to be climate neutral today? Because data centers we're building today will be operational in 2030. And that sparked this collaboration. It's been a great effort, and I really appreciate all of my colleagues and competitors in the co-location space and in the cloud space to get together.
And that's the important bit, isn't it? That it's not just the co-location fraternity or the real estate investment trust fraternity. You've got what we've called earlier the hyperscales.
Yep.
R1 signed up right now, either directly or via their associations. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So something's signed. There's a big overarching Green Deal thing from Europe.
Yep.
So what is signed? What does it mean? And most of the people here who are designing, building, operating, managing up, the whole food chain,
supplying into. Yeah. So
when and how will it affect them?
So effectively, the climate neutral data center pact, sorry, it's a mouthful, but that's what it is. And you can go and visit climateneutraldatacenter.net, and it's very clear. Everything is on the website, very clear. There's effectively a governance group, which defines what we vote on and what we do and what we agree and not agree. There is an initiative which sets the targets we're going to achieve. And there is a vision group that is setting out how we think the European Commission should deploy the 2 trillion euros they're putting into the Green Deal, things such as energy storage, for example. So the initiative itself is defined. It accepts the 2030 targets for climate neutrality. So this isn't carbon neutral, climate neutrality. Europe defines that at the moment as 100% use of renewables. For the data center and ICT industry, a minimum efficiency standard. So in our data center space, we're currently using PUE. This might change, but that's the metric. And so target on efficiency, a water usage efficiency target, a heat reuse target, and not a electronic recycling, but an electronic refurb and reuse target to fit the European eco design for servers. So those are the 5 targets. All of us are signed up to it, and we'll start publishing our first report at the end of this year, which is our launch. So 2022 will be our launch year, January 1, and the end of 2022. So we can start showing a trend curve to 2030 goals.
So if I'm in a helicopter and I'm looking down,
yep,
Europe, from this perspective, is a Green Deal, the $2 trillion Green Deal, that is all things reduction of mankind's effect on climate change, right? And your aspect dovetails into that as part of ICT and digital services. Obviously, there are other aspects outside the data center that are like the transmission networks and all this type of stuff. And obviously, I'd imagine over time, there's all of it will be looked at, not just the center aspect.
Yeah, so the issue here is that you effectively have a yin and a yang thing happening, where the European Commission has said we want to be a climate neutral continent by 2050. So the entire process, from food to cars to extraction industry, manufacturing, transport, everything, climate neutral by 2050. But one of the ways to do that is through the mass digitization of the European economy. So they talk about the use of artificial intelligence to improve transportation, smart buildings, smart cities, smart health. And they're saying, okay, that's the yin and yang model. The two it's a positive cycle, but we have to start somewhere. So why don't we turn around and say, well, ICT has to be the first to apply green digitization. So they're forcing us to accept that we have to go first before agriculture, before chemical, before everybody else.
Understood.
And
I think
but just to be clear, that's a challenge that actually, if you really look at what we've already achieved, isn't actually overly aggressive. And so I think by doing this, it's going to help the European Commission push getting rid of server rooms. Rich, and you were just talking about the inefficiency of an on-site data center. Well, we're now going to create a target, and maybe we could see things like the European Commission saying, we won't buy data center services unless they meet that target, which is going to be good for the industry.
So, Michael, you're going to hang around. You're going to be here for the Q&A in a few minutes. But if we have a lot of the people who will be responsible for Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3, and all bits, and if they want to keep track of what's going on, what's the name of the website again?
So it's climateneutraldatacenter.net.
And
data
right
center
now,
spelled the European way, RE.
And right now, till bit of momentum, clarity, next steps is defined, work groups are established. It's for trade associations in the European or EEA, and also operating operators within the EU right now.
Yeah, so for example, a trade association that's not in the EC is Tech UK. So they're part of the European electricity grid, so it'd be stupid to not include them. So yes, and data center operators that have facilities in the European Commission or the EEA.
And within reason, again, a lot of people on the call will be aware of EU DCA and there'll be EU Code of Conduct and all this. And all this has been borne in mind, discussed to try and consolidate into one set of discussions as distinct to a whole shotgun effect, right?
So we're in touch with Bruno and the various members of the EU Code of Conduct for Data Center Efficiency and the Joint Research Council at DG Connect. And we're not inventing anything new. We're merely creating a reporting metric to say, this is how we're doing. If someone says, well, what do I do or how do I do it? We're saying there's an ISO standard for that. There's the EU Code of Conduct. Please call them. It's
so one would suggest we'll move on to Sami. In the not too distant future, there'll be a certain amount of tenders going to certain projects that will make sure that you guys have your stamp. You're going to need suppliers to be complying with that certain level of standard.
Yeah, we would see that the GPP may get some teeth. That's the Green Public Procurement Program for the European Commission. Once they start doing that, we could probably start seeing any large corporation that has an ESG program doing the same thing.